The WannaCry Ransomware Attacks. What happened to cause the destruction that was WannaCry? Well, to understand what happened with WannaCry, you have to understand what's ransomware. So, by description, ransomware is a type of malware that attempts to extort money from a computer user by infecting and taking control of that victim's machine or personal computer or the files or documents stored on those personal computers. Normally, ransomware likes to lock down the personal computer in any way that it can, from blocking normal usage like browsing apps or going on a web page or accessing social media, and especially, or more specifically, accessing important documents or files by encrypting those documents and files to prevent any access to that data. Normally, a ransomware gets into your computer by access from a malicious email or malicious links that you click on that download in the background. Otherwise, malicious softwares that normally stem from unsecured websites, social media websites, instant messages from unsecure sources, or emails from what seem to be secure but tend to be hidden malicious sources that just get you by those catchy titles or whatever it can get to click open that email and download that file. So now that we know specifically what ransomware is, what really happened with WannaCry and did it affect really as many people as it was claimed to be on the news? So WannaCry was an event that happened on Friday, May 12th, back in 2017, where several organizations were affected by a ransomware strain or large wave of attacks. So WannaCry spread over up to 300,000 systems in 150 countries in a matter of 2 days. The countries that were like strongly affected were Russia, China, and these were primarily due to them being more outdated systems in those countries, with all be it significantly impacts in other countries like the United States and the United Kingdom and most of Europe. Specifically for the United Kingdom, a large one that affected it was the National Health Services. This spread of the ransomware was slowed down over the time that it was up for those 2 days that we previously talked about because of the discovery of a kill switch, which we'll get into later. Basically, there were reports of new variants of the malware over the time as more and more patches were to come out to try to prevent it and stop it to not have this kill switch. So WannaCry had many names: WannaCrypt, WannaCryptor 2.0, and WannaDecryptor. The WannaCry ransomware exploits a vulnerability that was in Microsoft Server Message Block, otherwise known as SMB for a lot of programmers, which was in part using of two protocols that connected to files and folders across a network. Microsoft patched the flaw in MS 17-010, which was a patch advisory on March 14th, though the patch did not cover a lot of the older systems that we were talking about with Russia and China, and a lot of people who don't tend to update their systems outside of corporations. The WannaCry ransom attack just hit head running, and Microsoft tried to extend this MS-17 update that we were talking about to Windows XP, Windows 8, and Windows Server 2003. On Friday, the 12th of May 2017, the large cyber attack launched, infecting those 300,000 computers we talked about in many countries. The ransom that was demanded was a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin that was in 28 different languages. So it tried to reach out as much as it could to as many people as it could, whether they were in this country or that, by infecting all the computers that it could. No one was truly safe unless you had updated, and a lot of people hadn't. So specifically, this is the ransom note that would go onto your computer if you were infected. As you can see, it affected you, and it gave you a certain amount of time before your files were deleted or lost. And it also said that it would up the payment that you would have to send to get your files. So It explained to you, for people who wouldn't understand, a little short understanding of how they affected your computer by encrypting your documents. They said that you could recover your files, and it gave you how to pay. You could check to see if your files were released, but it's still up in the air if people actually got their files back. Some reported to have gotten their files back, some to say they just took their money and nothing ever was done. But this was the pretty much lock screen on your computer. So the amount of people that were infected. So as we said, 300,000 plus computers were affected in the initial run of WannaCry. Several large organizations that were actually hit, specifically in the US, were FedEx. In the UK, there were 61 of those hospital organizations we were talking about, with services being disrupted due to the locked files and patient files. Russia had 1,000 plus, whopping 1,000 plus of its interior ministry infected. That's government organizations with locked data that you cannot access without potentially paying and maybe getting those files back. Spain was Telefonica, which was the largest telecommunications company at the time, and I believe still is. Um, and as you can see in the right, WannaCry ransomware attacks were the highest in Russia by a whopping margin, with Ukraine slightly following, being mostly a part of Russia, and the other Russian and Chinese connected countries, mostly everywhere in that general continent regions, all the way down. So the impact of the WannaCry, I wanted to touch on it from the availability, confidentiality, and integrity side of things. So the availability of the information that was affected organizations lost access to the files encrypted by the malware. So recovery was uncertain even after paying the ransom. Confidentiality. The malware does install a backdoor that could be used to leak data from affected machines, but the malware itself does not extort the data. And the integrity, aside from encrypting the data, the malware does not alter the data, but the backdoor could be used by others to cause additional damage. So the availability and confidentiality and integrity are what a lot of CompSec and InfoSec, like myself in the military, use to kind of understand the damages that can happen to information and in information security if an attack were to happen. You have to understand the availability, the confidentiality, and the integrity to justify the security measures that you take, um, whether it's confidential information, secure information, and what you need to do to take the best cases for that information in the case of an event occurring, whether it be a terrorist act, such as ransomwares and other events, or just a fire. So how does one mitigate this type of attack or event? So I wanted to touch up on what on a confidentiality, integrity, and availability aspect these can affect and how you can prevent those events from happening on a more CompuSec and InfoSec level. So to ensure the vulnerability management, including patch management, vulnerability scanning, remediation, which is a lot of what Microsoft tried to do, is the robust and mature enterprise level program that you need to use, like we've learned recently. Maintaining backups that account for critical data and the rate of data generation. So a big thing with ransomware is you need to consistently have a backup of your files. If you're not encrypting certain files, like personal work documents that do not have PII or Social Security, all of those kind of uh, information, uh, it's good to have a backup just in case something happens, especially in the event of ransomware. So the next three, implementing endpoint monitoring, ensuring organizations have comprehensive security, and confirming that critical systems are not unnecessarily connected, are specifically always making sure that you're keeping track of your system. If you have endpoint monitoring, you can see malicious behavior on the highest level to the lowest level. Comprehensive security awareness is making sure that everyone understands what they're doing and what is going on and what could happen with uh, leaving passwords on tables or downloading illegal or potentially harmful files. And making sure that there were not ports opened are the biggest thing for unnecessarily connected devices, or making sure that computers that aren't being used are still being up to date. Now, the biggest thing is, should we know when these events happen? So to date, an upwards of 300 million USD have been extorted from victims with ransomware. A little over 2,000 ransomware complaints have been filed by specifically individuals uh, in the past 2 years, complaints that are towards companies and they have had no repercussions. A total of 10 plus million USD has been reported, just reported, and that's not including anything hidden or still questionably in the works from companies losing money to these ransomware attacks like WannaCry. So uh, on the right, we have 4 questions if you should worry about cybersecurity as a company. By SpendEdge, they did this, and although it's for companies, you should look at it as a consumer. Is the business you're looking at prepared for cyber criminals? What kind of company is it? Are they big? What do they do with their information? Is the information secured? Do you know if your information is secured itself? Is the company actually being up to date? What do they do to secure your information? Are you able to manage the confidential information of your customers and suppliers? So is the company too small to handle a large amount of load? What kind of information do you have? Are you a big company? Are you going to go with a big company? If you are an important person, who do you go with? Definitely don't want to go with the small totem guy. Do you have a contingency plan in place to mitigate risks? So, on a consumer level, obviously you're not mitigating thousands upon thousands of individuals' information, but you are trying to mitigate damages done from your own personal computer being taken. So as we talked about earlier, backing up your information, having a spare computer, or having a backup plan of your files, your personal documents, work, and the like is what you need to have in place alongside security itself. So security of your computer and the like. Um, we can learn this all just from the WannaCry attacks, and knowing that you're out of date is immediately a flag. You need to update your computer. A lot of the WannaCry computers were affected because they weren't up to date. So it's just something you have to look at with ransomware and these types of attacks. So in closing, I hope that people who can look at the WannaCry attacks and see the amount that affected just from singular individuals who paid $300+ just to get their information back and lose it because of a little exploit in a Microsoft app is uh, what you need to look at with the new cyber world. You have to understand that it's a dangerous world if you're not continuously updating, continuously staying ready and learning and understanding. It's just like cars, just like the rules of the road, you have to understand everything that's new going on. So hopefully you all have learned and I can take something from it.